if you're recording this, I might drop off and pick up the recording because I'm supposed to be in another thing right now as well. So I'll jump over to that. Thank you.
Okay. So the idea for today is to present how the interpretation worked today, because I have created a small plugin for the Web3 that we can use in a couple of scenarios. So I will share my screen. Okay, if you have any question, just interrupt me in any moment. So we have a lot of different scenarios in which we need interpretation. For example, if we are in a negotiation with a lot of different countries, or even if they have different languages, because at least in Spain, we have like a official language that is Spanish, but we have also 4 other languages for different regions. And when the politics are negotiating, sometimes they use their own language. Also in military courts, because there are cases in which the person doesn't know the language of the court. And another one could be, for example, if somebody is requesting an immigration permission, for example, in case of war, for example. In the past, we had a plugin for the Webpack 2. At first, it was only like logic without any interface, but in the past, in the last year, more or less, we added some new features. For example, now we have some an interface with the current language, and also we have the possibility to mute the interpretation channel, and a lot more. But what we wanted is to go to the next step. So we added a lot of new features. For example, one problem before is that if we wanted to change the channel, for example, if the interpreter is translating from Spanish, from the main room to Spanish, and they want to translate to French, he has to leave the interpretation room and to enter again. It takes a lot of time. So now he can do it through a selector. Other problem was with the synchronization between the main room microphone and the microphone in the interpretation channel, because it was a bit strange to have different buttons, and the interpreter doesn't know what he's doing, if he's talking to the interpretation channel or the main room. Another thing that they wanted in the previous version is that we had a slider to change the volume in the main room. And we added the same, more or less the same, in the plugin. In this case, we have a slider in one of the roles that allows you to modify, to choose what channel do you want to hear the most. For example, if you want to hear the main room and a bit of the interpretation room, or the other way around. And also, the final thing is that by default, the interpreter only translates in one direction. That means from the main floor to the interpretation room. In some cases, it could be the other way around. So in this plugin, we have 2 different roles. The interpreter, who is listening to the main floor and translating to another language in the interpretation room, and the listener. The listener by default is only somebody that is only hearing what the interpreter is saying, nothing else. But in any case, he could also speak. He could speak to the main floor or to the interpretation room. It depends on the case. And with the new version of the Infinity, we can have different paths and branding. So what we can do is to define like a path only for the interpreter and another one for the listener. The plugin has a configuration file. So in that file, we can define the role, the different options in the interpreter and the listener. For example, in the interpreter, we can define if he can change the direction of the interpretation. In the listener, we can define the percentage of the main floor in the interpretation, and if the listener is allowed to speak to the interpretation room. Finally, we have the list of all the channels. You can see here a code. The code means that, for example, if we are is the suffix of the interpretation channel. For example, if we are if this is the main room, H451, the interpretation channel for French will be this. So this is what I told you, that we have two different use cases, one in one direction. So the listener is more or less like a subscriber to a language. So he won't be able to talk to the interpretation room. This is a scenario that was requested for Eurojust a long time ago, and is the one that for which we built the Web2 plugin. The other scenario, the bidirectional or live interpretation, is when the interpreter has to translate to two languages. For example, it was the case in New Mexico courts, where maybe a witness only speaks Spanish and the main floor is in English, so an interpreter should translate from Spanish to English and to English to Spanish. Here you can see the diagram for the one direction. So the interpreter is listening to the main room and is talking only to the interpretation room. And the listener can talk to the main room, but in the sound, he will hear mainly the interpretation room and a bit of the main room.
But just a question, Marcus. There is a slider. Eh? You will add a slider so he can choose which percentage sound he will receive from the main room.
Exactly. You have like the UX later. Okay, I will show you.
Yeah.
It's this one on the right. So you can choose if you want to hear the interpreter or mainly the main floor.
Yeah, okay, but why have you added the percentage and 20%? That is the start.
It's only an example.
Okay, good, thank you.
And the value here is the default. So when you join to the interpretation room, by default will be in this value, but you can change it if you want.
Yeah, good, thank you.
I have a question as well. If you go back to the last drawing. So in this case, how can the interpreter translate what the listener says into the main VMR?
This is in the next scenario. In the next scenario, we will change the microphone between the main VMR and the other one.
Okay.
So the thing is that so we have different parameters, and we can achieve one scenario or the other by choosing the right configuration. Here is the interface. So you can see that here the interpreter can change the language, also the listener, and the interpreter has a different button to mute the channel. And the button in the main interface is deactivated. This is the case of the bidirectional. So it's pretty similar, but in this case, the interpreter can also listen to the interpretation room. And the listener can talk to the interpretation room. When the interpreter changes the channel, the only thing that he does is to change the microphone. So here the microphone he's talking to the interpretation room, and right now to the main BNR. In the same as before, this is the configuration. The only values that change is this one that allow change direction and speak to interpretation room. Well, I don't know where I am. Okay, and this is the interface. So we have like a button here to change between the two directions, and the listener has an additional button to mute the interpretation. And in the same way, yes?
Marcos, how do you know, like, on the button between the main floor and French, which shows bi-directional, how do you know which direction you're speaking as the interpreter? Does it change the icon to like an arrow telling you which direction you're speaking?
Okay, what happens here is that these two values change. So if you click in this button, you will see French to main floor, and also the value in the mute button. So it will say something like a mute main floor instead of French.
Okay.
So later I will make a small demo, so you will see all of it by yourself. This is only a small example of how we can achieve like the backend part. So we can create the BNR manually. We can have another service and use the management API, a local policy, or right now I am using a local policy, but maybe if we can have like a scheduler, maybe it makes sense to have an external policy. And this is all concerning the presentation. And right now, I will make a small demo of the two scenarios, and you will see how it works. So on the left, you have the interpreter, and here the listener. So you have a new button on the interface. And the first step is to choose the language that you want to translate from to. So I choose French in this case. I put the PIN because it's protected. And I do the same for the listener. No, I put another ping. So I put the right ping. You can see here that the channel is mute because I was mute before, and we can change what I want to see. I want to hear the main floor or the interpreter, for example.
Is that mute button synced to the other mute button?
No, the other mute is disabled, so this is the only one.
Okay.
You can see here that I can't push this button. But in the listener, because he's talking to the main floor, I can enable it and disable it. I can also minimize the interpretation, move it around if I want, and leave the interpretation. This is the one direction, and I will show you now the bidirectional. So the beginning is the same. But we have two differences. The first one is that we have a mute French in the interpretation, in the listener, and in the interpreter we have this button. So if we click on that, I will start talking to the main floor, and the interface will change. More or less, this is all. Do you have any question related to any of these scenarios?
In the two-directional one here, for example, now you're speaking to the main floor as the interpreter, right?
Yes.
I just wonder if you need the from here. Maybe I don't know the use case good enough, but do you need to care as the interpreter that you're speaking from the French room? Like, do you not care just to know whether or not you're speaking to the main floor or the interpretation room? I just don't see the reason why we have the from here.
The from is just a way to emphasize where are you talking about, the direction, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know if there is.
Yeah, I see the point. I just wonder if it will be less confusing if we just show what we're speaking into, either main floor or the language room, because you're not effectively speaking from one to the other. You're speaking just into one, if you know what I mean.
Maybe it's a thing that we can discuss, but nevertheless, we should also have this selector, because maybe now I am translating to French to the main floor, but I will want to easily change to Hispanic to the main floor, for example.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Because in this scenario, are you the only one that hears the listener, or is everyone in the main room hearing the listener?
1 second, because let me 1 second. In this scenario, I am the only one that is listening to the listener.
Yeah, exactly. So then it makes sense to showcase where you are translating from, right?
Yes.
Marcos, I think when you show that icon for the interpreter, I like the from and the 2, because that verbally tells you from what you're translating from or where and to. The thing that's a little bit confusing is the button itself that shows the arrows in both direction. If the button also reinforced the from and the to, meaning the arrow pointed in the same direction as the from and the to, and when you click on it, it changes direction, or something like that, I think that would be additionally helpful.
Or yes, or maybe we can leave like only an arrow for from front to 2 and include a new button just to switch the direction.
Yeah,
Yep,
I think so too.
that could work as well.
Or the icon that you have there can be the icon that shows up when you hover over the button or something. So I'm sure Marusha have some suggestions.
Yes.
I have different options, but we didn't add any icons or did any fine tuning. I guess you just grabbed the icon and use it.
Yes, I
We
saw
have
your
different
design.
versions. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I took your design and just put the icon in the plugin. But
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
something that we can discuss because it's also something
Yeah.
that we will use in the next step. So it makes sense to discuss it.
But it's amazing. It's first time for me to see it with updated designs, and I think it's quite good what you did. I'm impressed because we didn't have like anything. Like Marcus just grabbed what he saw in the files.
I was familiar
Good
with
stuff.
the Web App 2 version, which worked, and now that it's Web App 3, I would say the exact same thing. This is impressive. The second scenario was the one that fit for New Mexico courts, and the fact that you can have the interpreter and the listener now using the same Web App 3, makes the look and feel consistent, and that's really good.
Yeah, are they using that this one right now, John, or still Web App 2?
No, still. We presented Web App 2. So, and Marcos, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is Web App 3, we could go, you could go with the current release of software version, I think we're on 33.1 now, right?
Yes, it's very easy to integrate because it's only the plugin, and if you already have the local policy or something like that, you don't have to. You don't need to do any change. Only to upload a new branding with the plugin. But the idea now, I think that is best to propose changes to the plugin. For example, what you told us before, and also to test it internally, just to see what's working, what is not working, and all the improvements that we can make before giving the plugin to the customers. Once we have done that, maybe we can start like testing the plugin with some a few customers, just to see what they think, if the plugin satisfies their needs.
That sounds good. So let me know if you want to speak to the customer and that we can set up a demo with them.
Okay.
Great.
Any other question or suggestion?
Oh, it's only the timing. What timing? What's the planning?
I don't know, because for me it's working, but maybe the plugin is working right now. So the only timing depends of if we find some issues, or maybe if we want to implement a new feature. But I will say that the best we can do is, if you need the plugin for Eurojust, what we can do is just test the plugin ourselves, maybe CD, you and me, and see if it is enough for them.
Yeah.
Which customer
perfect.
are we talking about here now?
Sorry?
Which customer are we talking about?
Yeah, we have Eurojust, one of the customers. He's looking. They are looking forward to the Web3 plugin. Yeah, Eurojust in Den Haag, European Justice.
Oh, okay,
So-
okay.
And
Thanks.
we have
Yeah.
also the European Council. That's another customer. Who's,
Yep.
looking forward
Yes.
to this.
Yes, I think that we will have a meeting with them in the next month,
Yeah.
with the European Council, I mean.
Yeah.
Maybe we can show them the new plugin and see what they
that
think.
would be great. Yeah. We should do that.
I guess that was going to be my next question: is where does this fit in relation to the new work that we're looking to do over the next couple of quarters, to bring these native features together with the Infinity support for things like ducking? Would we be wanting to maintain both? Is there room for both? Maybe it does look like this has some specific capabilities that I don't think we're planning initially, anyway, for the for the new solution. Just wondering if there's any thoughts on that. Would we want to maintain both, or have a migration path for customers who might take this in the short term, but then we want to bring them back?
I think it was
For me, this is
always. Sorry, go on.
Go on, please.
Yeah, no. To my knowledge, this is more a workaround until we have the final thing in V35, right? So it depends. I think every feature he has implemented there is also part of our work, Will. So yeah. I guess it depends. I mean, this is
the one I
only
was thinking of
using
specifically.
this is only using internal policy, right? So I guess that's the use case if you want to continue.
Yes,
And I would say your last statement was Will was accurate. I certainly see it as solving for customer needs right now until we get to the native solution for the interpreter function. This will certainly help existing customers, and then we can come up with a native solution and migrate them over. Is how I see it.
Yes, exactly. I think the same. For the final solution, it will depend more or less how we can create it, because we discussed it if we want something native in the Web App 3 or a plugin. So depending on what we choose, we can reuse some things or not. But it's like a preview of what we can achieve.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
really
don't
good
think we have.
demo.
I guess we haven't decided on plugin or native for the feature. Something we need to discuss in the upcoming weeks, I guess. All right, I guess time is up. Thank you so much for the demonstration. Great work. Impressive.
Thank you for showing
you.
it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.